Okay, so I think we're going to begin now. Oh, here we go. Hey, hold on 1 second. Let me see the question. Sign from the notes we have not been receiving. Check my junk folder too, and sometimes issues with it. Hi. Um, yes, I have not sent out a newsletter for quite a while, so that's probably why you haven't received any. I should be sending one out this week, so do keep an eye on it. For newsletters in general, if you have a Gmail account, sometimes they'll show up in the promotions folder. So you want to check that too, in addition to checking your spam folder. But we haven't been getting any because I haven't been sending any. So sorry about that. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So we are going to begin with, first of all, just settling in, getting the mind and body working together for a change. So just settle in, kind of take a breath. And Samda Sankara Shiri Santamakara Jibani Shudan Susundranata Tangisaso Kadanamas. Omechigi, Tipojane, to some Sing Gangang over Nate and some Chabanas and Zepat, so in a Mishablas or Okay, so we're going to begin as always with our bodhicitta motivation. So bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word meaning awakened mind, heart. But the definition of the word is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So everything we do on this path is meant to be done with that as the reason, right? The motivation that we're doing that thing. Yes, we are spending time working with our own mind, working with our own heart, doing our formal practice, trying to fulfill our commitments and so forth, right? But we're not just ideally, okay, we're not just doing that for ourselves. We're doing that so that we can develop the qualities necessary to benefit the maximum amount of beings possible. So bodhicitta sometimes is misunderstood as a synonym for compassion, but it's not. It's not the same. It begins with compassion. You don't have bodhicitta without compassion, but it's more than that. So when we see the suffering of others, and like we think about like the children in Gaza, or we think about the, hungry people in America or animals who are suffering this kind of thing, then compassion arises, right? And that compassion is the wish that they be free of this suffering, okay? And from the Buddhist point of view, in order to be free of suffering, we have to be free of the cause of suffering, right? So that means this fundamental ignorance that we have about the nature of reality itself, okay? And that can really only be addressed by attaining enlightenment. So if that is something that is too unfamiliar to you, that's okay. If we could just take a moment to think, at least to think, may the time we spent together this morning benefit not only ourselves, but others as well, okay? All right, so today I want to just briefly cover the subject of death and dying, okay? It's in my opinion, actually one of the most interesting and useful teachings in the Vajrayana or Tibetan Buddhism altogether. Um, we don't offer much in the West in this regard. We don't offer much. Um, there was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I think in the 70s maybe, was one of the first people in America to really start educating people about the dying process and And then the hospice movement, which I think actually began in England, to as far as Western countries are concerned. We've come a long way since, the 60s in this country. I myself grew up in a funeral home, so I'm quite familiar with at least that part of the process, and after death process. And then various religions have their own particular ways of handling it. But according to what I've seen anyway, I think Buddhism offers the most complete and practical way of handling it. Okay, so that way begins actually with the contemplation of impermanence, right? So, there's these four thoughts that, I talk about all the time and that are mentioned very frequently in the teachings. It's called the four mind changes, or the four thoughts that turn the mind towards the Dharma. And the first one is precious human life. The second is death and impermanence. The third is the law of cause and effect. And the fourth is the suffering of cyclic existence. So we usually are pairing those two, right? Death and impermanence together. So we experience permanence. I'm sorry, we experience impermanence on a regular basis. We experience, um, you know, the seasons changing. We experience getting older. We experience watching our kids grow. We experience, um, you know, changing our mind about something, right? All kinds of things on a constant basis. We can see impermanence in motion, and death is just part of that process, right? The death of the body is part of that process of impermanence. And in a sense, we're dying every day. We're dying to our old ideas. We're dying to our old, friendships. So, one season dies into another, this kind of thing. So, if we are regularly contemplating, which we're meant to as practitioners, to be contemplating death and impermanence on a daily basis, if we're regularly doing that, then the big impermanence, the big change of death is less shocking, right? Because we've made ourselves familiar with it over time. Okay. So, um, so we contemplate death and impermanence, not to be morbid, not to be sad, or you know, um, yeah, not to be morbid and sad. Okay, we contemplate it for actually the opposite reason, to suffer less. I mean, that is the reality. Impermanence is reality. Death is reality. And if we just spend our whole life going la 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 la, you know, we're going to be very shocked when that time comes, and it will be a lot harder to handle, be a lot harder for us to make that transition or to help others to make that transition. The other thing is, if we're contemplating impermanence and we're able to remain awake and aware, like in the present moment, right? We know, like, often when we talk about impermanence, we're talking about things like, oh, um, our relationships will dissolve, and our beauty goes away, and the things that we love disappear, and so forth. Okay, but the opposite is also true. And I know I talked about this just recently, maybe last week even, about impermanence. So look at the previous talks, and um, if you're interested in learning more about that. But impermanence also means that things can grow, that your children can grow, that you can be poor today and rich tomorrow. Like this, impermanence works in that direction as well. Um, so, uh, um, so it begins the sort of practice of dealing with death begins with this regular daily um, contemplation, noticing, being aware of impermanence in general, right? And then if we're thinking about death specifically, there's a whole kind of outline of the process of dying, which is super interesting. Okay. There's a really good book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyo Rinpoche that I highly recommend. I love it so much because for a lot of reasons. One is that it explains the process, I think, very clearly yet succinctly. It's also aimed, like it also can, like it's aimed for Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike. So he will give examples, of like you can visualize the Buddha or you can visualize Jesus, this kind of thing, right? So it's useful. And the other reason I like it a lot is because it's explaining um, really important key Buddhist concepts in a simple, easy to understand way. Hey, Tess. Um, so for that reason, I really recommend that book. But there's a whole bunch of other books on death and dying that I also recommend, which you can find on our website. If you look under, I think the upper tab says resources or something like that, and you can see in there, there's like recommended reading, and there's a whole list that needs to be up. It's been needing updating for decades, but anyway, still a lot of good information in that list. So when they talk about the process of dying itself, like when you're actively dying, okay, um, they describe it as the one element kind of dissolving into the next. Okay, so meaning the five elements: earth, air, water, fire, and wind. Which our physical body is composed of, will start to dissolve like one by one. Okay. And they describe the process by like what it looks from the outside, like as an observer, but also what the person dying is experiencing at that time. Okay. And you can see some of this. I don't know if he explains all of them, but I know he explains at least the first couple in that book. I don't have the book in front of me right now, but um, the first one is the earth element dissolving. And what we see from the outside is the person wants to like sit up. They want like more and more pillows. They look distressed. But what that person is experiencing is they feel like they're falling, or they feel like there's something sort of like a mountain on their chest. Is kind of the way that it's described, right? And it can be very distressing for that person. So if we know this kind of thing ahead of time, then we're like prepared, right? We're ready for that. Um, we're ready for that process, and it's not going to freak us out as much because we're like, oh yeah, this is what's happening, and we can help someone else. So many years ago, it was maybe 2009 or something like that. My uncle Bob was dying. It was my mom's brother. So I went with her to Texas so she could see him in his last days. And, we could be with the family, a very sweet family and a very sweet guy. I loved this man so much. But anyway, so he was already at the point where he wasn't really speaking anymore. And then I noticed that he was doing that he was looking distressed, that he wanted more pillows, and this. And I was like, okay, this is what he's going through. But he was a Christian, right? So I'm not going to go in there and say, the Lord Buddha hath said, I'm just going to talk to him like a normal person and explain. So I just said to him, oh, I bet you feel like you're falling or like there's a weight on your chest, but it's okay. You're not falling. There's not a weight on your chest. It's just because what's happening to your body right now as you're dying, that's the sensation, but you don't have to worry. Everything's okay. It's just working, and it's just what your body's experiencing right now. He relaxed immediately, immediately. So my knowing this very simple thing, which is not hard to remember, right, was able to, I was able to help this person, to help him relax in this stressful time of dying. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing, if it were me, I would hopefully be able to remember, oh yeah, this is why I'm experiencing that. But if I see it in someone else, then I can help them too, right? Um, uh, so you know, this is the way this kind of knowledge can help. And I mean, there's so much to say on this topic, and we really only have a few minutes, but just giving you kind of a brief overview. So one of the things that is really different from the Tibetan Buddhist point of view is that it can take 3 days or more for the consciousness to actually leave the body. So there's like a different definition of death altogether. Okay. So from the Western standpoint, death means, no more breathing, no more heartbeat, no more brain activity. But from the Buddhist point of view, from this school, okay, I'm talking from the Tibetan Buddhism or Vajrayana point of view, not all Buddhist schools will teach the same thing. Um, um, where was I? Uh, yes, okay. So the consciousness can remain in the body. Most people, I think, it remains for at least 3 days. Okay, before so the consciousness is sort of the gross forms of consciousness kind of dissolve, and then it's just this very subtle form of consciousness. So that remains like in the heart center, and then eventually will leave the body. But in the West, we just consider, well, it's done once you stop breathing, pretty much, right? So for that reason, in Tibet, typically they would let a body, um, they would wait 3 days before they dispose of the body to allow time for that person's consciousness to actually leave the body. Okay, very important time for practitioners. So if one is a serious practitioner, then that time of dying, those last moments of dying, are super important because we can actually attain enlightenment during that time. And one of the reasons for that is because we no longer have the distractions of like the senses. So we can really get to that very, very subtle form of consciousness and finally, realize or recognize the true nature of mind, and then finally be free of this mess once and for all. Okay. So um, then once the consciousness actually leaves the physical body, it enters a state called the bardo, Bardo, bardo. Um, uh, that's the Tibetan word. It just means in between. In English, we would call that the intermediate state. And there's like 4 bardos, or there's 6 bardos, depending on how you divide things, yada, yada, a lot of details. Okay. But normally, when we talk about the bardo, we're talking about that period, that intermediate state between this life and the next life. Okay, so interesting. So this period typically lasts 49 days of the human time, 49 days. All right. During this time, the being in that state perceives themselves, well, for the first half anyway, they perceive themselves um, uh, um, they perceive themselves having the body that they just had. Okay. And then for the second half, they perceive themselves as having the body that they're going to have, more or less. Okay. So that body that we have in the bardo is called a mental body. So it's very similar to the body we have that we perceive ourselves having when we're dreaming. Okay. So when we're having a dream, right, our actual physical body is laying in bed, but in the dream, we perceive ourselves as in life typically, right? Even if we're doing really weird things. So of course I'm flying. Oh, of course I'm talking to a lion and the lion's talking back. Like but the body we have is the mental body. So it's very much like that in the bardo, in the in-between state. Okay. Um, I see your question, Brian. I'll get to that in a second. So um right. So that period of the bardo is actually, for most people, most beings, very, very actually difficult time. Okay. It's really frightening because we don't have a body. We feel very unmoored. We feel very kind of panicky. We just want a body. All of our emotions are like magnified 7 times over. There's a lot of bright lights, there's then dull lights, and there's a lot of sounds, there's a lot of fear, and so forth. So it's quite a difficult time. So as the survivors, or I don't know, as those left behind who are still living, we do a lot of practice for that person during that time to kind of help them through that period. Okay. Then after that period, then the person will have a different body, whether it's human body, animal body, or a body of any of the other realms. Okay. And then it just continues. So all of this is determined by our own karma, the law of cause and effect. So things that we do, things that we say, things that we think, that's what affects the kind of experience we have in this life, in the bardo, and in the next life. Okay. Um, so that's extraordinarily brief explanation of kind of that dying process and what happens after death. I do want to say one more thing before I answer Brian's question, and that is that it's really different for great masters. Okay. Um, Great masters can remain in meditative state, meditating on the clear light, which is typically how it's explained. So they will be often in the meditation posture, so sitting, right? Their heart has stopped. There's probably, if they put a thing on their head, they would see there's more brain activity, but they are in a state of meditation. And during that time, the extremities might be cold, but there's no like rigor mortis. And also, the area over the heart remains warm. And also, they don't decay, they don't begin to decay until the consciousness leaves the body. And so, there will be no bad smell. On the contrary, there will be often a really good smell, really very pleasant smell. And the person will remain in meditation for anywhere from 3 days to months at a time. It's really interesting. So um, uh, right. So when they're done with this, what they term it is when they're done with their meditation, then the body will slump. Typically, sometimes different color liquids will come out of the nose and so forth. So, um, okay. Uh, so, yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can help someone who has passed away through various practices, through talking to them. A lot of times, what happens is the person will come around their loved ones. The consciousness will kind of come around their loved ones. Sometimes they don't understand that they've died, particularly if they've died suddenly. Um, and sometimes because of that panic, they want to go and find help. So, if we are in that situation and, we might feel like, oh, I feel the presence of my loved one here. Maybe they are there. Maybe it's your imagination. I don't know, but maybe they are there. In which case, you can talk to them either in your mind or with words and just let them know that everything they're experiencing is like a dream. It's just their own mind. They don't have to be afraid. It's okay. This kind of thing to kind of calm them. And the more kind of positive we can keep our own mind, the more we can fill our own mind with love and compassion, the more we'll be able to help them. Okay. So, how do we prepare for death? Uh, well, we die as we live, so if we can't handle things not going our way, we're gonna have a really hard time when we die. So we should practice that now, practice remaining stable, remaining calm in most situations and so forth. This is something I personally am not very good at, but I do try. um, if we can't handle traffic, we're going to have a hard time when we die. If we can't handle our flight being delayed, we're going to have a hard time when we die. Like, we have to get used to these smaller inconveniences, things not going our way, and so forth, so that we can handle the bigger things, right? And then we, as I said at the beginning, right, just have this kind of more or less constant recognition, contemplation of impermanence is extremely helpful, or more helpful than you may realize. Um, then another thing you can do, or that is important to do, is to do kind of these practical preparations, right? So writing your will now, even if you're 25, you know, we people we can die at any time. That's the other thing, sort of death awareness kind of meditation contemplation. Like we all tend to think like, oh yes, I'll die when I'm 85 and peacefully in my bed with my loving family surrounding me, Okay, maybe you get hit by a bus tomorrow, like we don't actually know people. And this is something I learned growing up in the funeral home, people die as babies, people die as at 99 years old and everything in between, you see young mothers dying, others dying, little kids dying, teenagers dying, people die all the time at all kinds of ages for in all sites of situations. So you shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm young or oh, I'm healthy and I don't need to, I can put off my death plans until tomorrow. No, we should really do it now. So write your will, get the power of attorney, make a living will, um, make it known to your friends and family, what it is exactly that you want, and talk to them about it. This is really important too. There's a lot to say about that as well. But like, do you want to be on life support? If you want to be on life support, what is a reasonable time for you? You know, if you're just using like in the forms, at least when my mother passed away, they use the word prolonged. Well, I don't want to be on life support for a prolonged period of time. Well, prolonged is an extremely relative term. What does that mean to you? Right? Does prolonged mean 3 days or does prolonged mean 2 years? That's a huge difference. So you should make it clear. Write write a paper or talk to your family or make a recording or whatever. This is what I mean. This is what I want. This is what's important to me. And then let your plans go. That's important too, because you can plan everything down to, the greatest kind of meticulous detail, right? And nothing will go your way. The doctors are going to listen to your family more than they're going to listen to your own wishes, which is too bad, but that is the way that it is. So um, if we make these plans and then we're overly attached to these plans and they don't go our way, we're just going to upset ourselves and kind of sort of do the opposite of the reason we made these plans in the first place. You know what I mean? If we get too, we have to just be willing to let it go. Most people want to die at home. Here's a good example. Most people, if you ask them, they want to die at home, but the vast majority of people die in hospital. So if that's the case, we have to make peace with dying in the hospital. You know what I mean? So this kind of thing. Um, okay. All right, so I think I'll stop there and answer Brian's question. So Brian asks, what is the Buddhist take on donating your body to science? Donating your body to science. Okay, that's different. Okay. So as far as I'm aware, there's nothing wrong with donating your body to science. I mean, once your consciousness is gone, doesn't matter, it might as well be a clay pot or something. It doesn't really matter once your consciousness is gone. Okay. It can be meritorious, if people are gonna use your body to learn whatever they learn, um, like those what do they call it? There's a cool name for it, but I can't remember what it is. It's where they just leave bodies out in the open in various natural conditions to help solve crimes and stuff. Like what happens to a body after 3 days? What happens to a body when there's a lot of rain? This kind of stuff. I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, you know what I mean? And then there's just learning surgery or learning anatomy or this kind of thing. So I think that's usually fine. I don't see any reason to have an objection about that. The debate comes with donating your organs, okay? Which, at first glance it seems like something quite meritorious, which, of course it is. I mean, you can benefit, I don't know how many people, like quite a few people. You can donate your eyes, your organs, this kind of thing. However, the issue with that is that you're actually still alive when they take your organs because the blood has to be still circulating. So if you've donated your organs and let's say you donated your heart has to still be pumping when they take it out. So they're killing you. So it's kind of, you get that brings you into a gray area. Okay. So some teachers will say, look, it's really meritorious. It's great. You should do that if that's what you want to do. You're benefiting others. You're at the end of your life anyway. No problem. Other teachers will say, you know, for a practitioner, someone who spent their whole life practicing, that's the time when you can reach enlightenment and you can benefit countless beings, not just 8 or 9 or 10 beings, whoever, take your eyes, your various organs, and so forth. Okay. So in that case, it's probably better not to be an organ donor because you could attain enlightenment during that time and therefore benefit, many more beings than you could benefit by donating your organs. So ultimately, I think if you have a teacher, if you have a, you know, um, guru, lama, whatever, then you should ask them what they think, and then just follow their advice. Otherwise, you just make up your own mind, whatever you feel is best, is what would be recommended. So, any other questions? I'm just waiting in case somebody has a question and they're writing. I know there's a little bit of a delay between what I say and what you hear on YouTube also. So I just wait. Okay. Well, I do encourage everyone to really look into the teachings and practices around death and dying, because of what I said earlier. It's so helpful, not only for you, but for your loved ones, and it doesn't mean, we never want to try to convert somebody on their deathbed or, you don't even have to say it's from the Buddhist teachings or what have you, like I did with my uncle, just like, oh, I think this is probably what you're experiencing. It's okay, you'll be all right, kind of thing can really help. So we want to be skillful with that. Okay, so let's do some meditation now. We're going to begin with just mindfulness or breathing practice, and then we're going to go into the Tonglen practice. Okay. All right. So if you're sitting on the floor, you're sitting on your bed, just cross your legs in whatever position is comfortable for you. Otherwise, if you're sitting in a chair, you want your feet flat on the floor. It's going to help you keep your back straight. Okay. Your hands can be palms down on your knees, palms resting on top of each other like that in your lap, or with your fingers on top and your thumbs touching like that, whatever you're more comfortable with. So the back is straight but relaxed. So you don't want to be like you're standing at attention, just that is straight. Back of the neck is also straight, so your chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. Arms are relaxed. Shoulders are back. So normally I just roll my shoulders back. You see right away it opens up the chest. Mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth, breathing through the nose. Ideally, your eyes are open, looking down, kind of half closed, looking a few feet in front of you. Okay, so this posture is the way it is because it helps us, it helps the mind, right? This mind body, it has a relationship. They're not the same, but they have a relationship. So what we do with the body affects the mind and vice versa. So holding the body in this posture really helps the mind in meditation. Okay. So what is the meditation then? We have the posture. What are we doing with our mind? Well, we're just bringing our awareness to the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose. So take a moment to do that so you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So we're just focusing again, sort of at the end of the nostrils. And what we're trying to do is to maintain a continuous, relaxed awareness of that sensation. And we're not trying to stop thinking. Okay. The thoughts are going to arise, dwell, and disappear on their own. One thought will arise, dwell for however long, disappear on its own, and be replaced by another thought, dwells for a while and disappears on its own, etc. We just let that process happen. Consider it like clouds moving through the sky, okay? Maintaining this relaxed, open awareness of this sensation. What's going to happen typically is we are going to get distracted. the thing we're trying to avoid is getting distracted, but we're going to get distracted. That's why this is called a practice, right? As soon as we realize we're distracted, just bring the mind back to the breath. Focus on the breath again. Then we'll probably let some thoughts come and go, come and go. We're still focusing on the breath. And then the thought will catch us and we'll go running after it, right? And we'll make a big storyline. And then again, we'll realize, oh, I got totally distracted. And just bring the mind back again to the breath. That's this meditation. The Tibetan word for meditation is Gom, Gom. And Gom just means becoming familiar with or getting used to. So what are we becoming familiar with? What are we getting used to? We're we're becoming familiar with the mind in the state of awareness and the mind in the state of distraction, and bringing the mind back to the state of awareness. That's the practice in essence. Okay. So let's start. Let's just start. All right. So we have the posture. Bring awareness to that sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose, and let the thoughts come and go. So please begin that now. So now you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in breath or every out breath, whatever you prefer, for a total of 10 breaths. So the reason we do this because it helps us to realize more quickly if we've gotten distracted. So we'll suddenly realize, like, wait, where was I? I was supposed to be counting what? Okay, that way, oh yeah, I got distracted. Then just bring the mind back, start again at 1. If we get to 10 without getting distracted, don't let that fact distract you. Just start again at 1. So 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. Okay. So please begin that now. So there are things we can do depending on what we might be experiencing. So corrective measures. So you're the one who has to pay attention to that and figure it out in your own mind. But let's say that we're feeling very tense, um, kind of speedy. In that case, we want to take this posture with our hands under our thighs or on our knees. And we want to close our eyes for a little bit and make the body warmer or the room warmer. So put on a sweater, put on a blanket, make the room darker if you have this kind of control until you kind of calm down. Then you want to open your eyes and, kind of get back to the normal posture. If, on the other hand, you're feeling really dull and kind of sleepy and lazy, you want to do the opposite. You want to take this posture with your hands. It's more kind of rigid, and you want to look up or look out the window for a moment or look into a light. Just kind of just wake yourself up. You want to make the body cooler. So take off the blanket, take off the sweater, maybe open a window, put on a fan, whatever it may be, make the body cooler. It's going to wake you up. Another thing that you can do to wake yourself up if you are alone is to kind of jump up and down in your seat and go ha. So it'd be like this, like that. It'll wake you up. Um, it'll also wake up others. So you don't want to do that at 4 in the morning when your partner's, in the room, for example. But these are the kind of things you can do to kind of correct yourself. And you see, let's say that you're um, hyper, right? And you start to close your eyes and all that. You pay attention that you're not going to fall asleep, right? On the other hand, if you're trying to wake yourself up from being too dull, you want to make sure that you're not getting too hyper in that process, okay? So you have to be the one. And the way to do that, it's not going to happen like that. Yeah. It's going to happen through trial and error over time. You're going to see, oh, this is what my mind feels like when it's too hyper, or this is what my mind feels like when it's too dull. Yeah. And oops, I fell asleep, so want to keep ourselves kind of centered with these corrective um, uh, skills. I don't know the word would be. Okay. So let's get back to meditation. Again, we have the posture. We want to also check our posture from time to time because we can start to unknowingly, just kind of slump or lean to one side or fall asleep. A lot of times I'll see this or this. So we want to check our posture from time to time just to be upright but relaxed. Yeah. So please resume the meditation. Bring your mind back to the breath. Your body should be as relaxed as possible while maintaining the posture. And your mind should be as relaxed as possible while maintaining awareness of the breath. So we don't want to be grabbing after the breath, grasping after it, just watching the breath with a lot of tension, right? It's just, it's there. We're noticing it. We're not excluding anything from our experience. So we might hear our neighbors in the yard. We might feel an itch on our knee. We might be aware of, whatever's happening around us, but mostly aware of the breath. Yeah. So it's a great female master called Machi Klapton, and she says best relaxation, best meditation. So relaxation is really important. Okay, a little bit hard for Westerners sometimes in our no pain, no gain kind of society, but do your best. Mind is relaxed and at ease while being aware of the breath. The body is relaxed and at ease while maintaining the posture. So please continue. Okay, so we're going to end the meditation now, and we are going to go into the closing prayers. So you can download them by clicking on the link in the description box below. But I will share my screen with you just in case you haven't done that. Um, mm, so we say long life prayers for the Dalai Lama, our two main teachers, and also all of our teachers all together. We just say these in Tibetan. Kanri wawe kowe shinkansu pedam de wa malu tuene. Senre si wan tensing kem suyi. Sape ke kapa tu tenkyu shi. Om swasti, so the one below. Om swasti jigme kempe kalon yamparu. Unkap se chen se se puntawa. Nito dunsanam ke no brucho. Seche Yahweh Shakim Tasu So Om Swasti Tsela Gyam Surchin Lap Tenjune Unsin Dasi Gyuju Pama Wang Samsung Nadre Gyalpo Tachene Lap Chen Den De She Tun Ta Ge Sho Nama Kunkan Sampo Soadet Sutuku Sewi Wasuadet Sine Tashin Geba Soadet Namadante wa me pachingi lo. So the next prayer, this is dedicating the merit. So merit is like positive karma, good karma, whatever creates merit. So anytime we practice or study the Dharma, It's meritorious. Any kind of virtuous act we do is meritorious. May all attain omniscience. So in this case, omniscience is a synonym for full enlightenment. May defeat the enemy. Wrongdoing is the understanding that it's our own. So it's related to karma, the law of cause and effect. Um, pointing out that um, you know, our suffering is a result of our own wrongdoing. So that's really the enemy. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, these are the four main streams of suffering in the human realm. From the ocean of cyclic existence. So, cyclic existence, also called samsara, is this round of birth and death and birth and death, birth that we've been on since the beginning of time, right? So, it's considered an ocean because it's very vast and deep. May I free all beings. So, we're kind of ending with the bodhicitta, pardon me, ending with the bodhicitta motivation as well. Okay, so this one we say once in English, once in Tibetan. The remaining three prayers we say just in English, and then we say the 100-syllable mantra at the end. Okay. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi tomche sipani, tobne yepe tronam pomche shing, kegana chi banon tupai, sipe tsore doa doa sho. May bodhicitta, hang on, may bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Then we say this mantra. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Vishta Drito Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sawasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Tritam Shriyam Kuruhum Aha, ha, ha, hu, bhagavan. Sawatata kata vajramame mutsa padri bhava maha samaya sattva. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me this morning. Before I let you go, I have a couple of announcements to make. We are heading into our summer break. So that means we're not going to resume meditation, Saturday meditation, until the 26th of July. That'll be the next time that we do it. However, throughout the month of um, um, throughout this break, we'll still be doing the Buddha sadhanas, the Buddha sadhana on the appropriate days. I will not be leading, Sharon will be leading. So the next one is this coming Wednesday, the 25th, and then the following Thursday. So that's 7:30 at 7:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then July 3rd, 7:30 to 8, and July 10th, 7:30 to 8. And that's it before I come back. And the next one is July 24th, 4th, 7:30 to 8. So anyway, that's that will be in our newsletter, which I will send out this week. So please keep an eye out for that. I also just want to say we probably will be doing some kind of program maybe during July, maybe not until August. I want to do like a weekend sitting retreat, online. And then I want to do a seminar on death and dying as well. I just got to figure that out. I got to figure out those details. But again, keep your eye on the newsletter. It's always the best way to know what's happening. I honestly have just been kind of out of sorts for a few months, so I'm not quite on top of things as I like to be, but things happen. So, we'll get that information out for you. I also want to say if you can make a donation, we'd really, really appreciate it. We do need money to survive and to continue to offer things to you, to be able to share the Dharma with you, which is so precious. So anything that you can afford, we're not asking you to give us $1 million. I mean, if you have it, you can give it to us. But even 5, $10, it really helps. The best really is to become a member. And again, we have membership levels for any budget. Every membership level comes with some perks. So check out our page on the website about that. All the links for everything that you need is in the description box below. I think that's it. So I will see you at an event or at the end of July, whichever comes first. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please stay cool this week and, be aware of your elder friends and neighbors, relatives, so they don't get overheated, and also your pets, especially dogs. Um, don't leave them outside too long, and make sure you know how to cool them down, because a lot of dogs will die from heat stroke and kind of heat that we're going to be having this week. So please be aware of that, okay? And keep yourself cool too. Stay cool, baby. Okay?